Hi, everybody. I'm April Cummings. This is EDBEAT. I'm from Cayman Life TV, and joining me, of course, is Patrick Brendel from CaymanCurrent.org. Morning, Patrick.
Good morning, April. How are you?
I am doing very well. For those of you who are just tuning in because I forgot to record the first two times, it's going to be beautiful now because we're warmed up and ready to go. We are talking this week about high school diplomas, and the subject can be considered first by some a bit controversial in the Cayman Islands because in general, you would assume that all high school diplomas are equal, that they're the same. But in truth, they're not. We have different systems in place here, both the UK, the US system, some hybrids of both. We also have different testing systems. So there are a pile of reasons why one diploma and another are not exactly the same. But some of this also has had to do with feedback from the business community over the years. Patrick, I know you've been digging into the issue. Let's talk about what a high school diploma is all about in Cayman. What are you finding?
Thanks. So as you mentioned with the business community, we can start off there and branch out. For a long time, the business community has expressed concerns about the preparedness of high school graduates to enter and compete in the workforce. And I'll just read a little bit from the Chamber of Commerce's, they have what's called an advocacy agenda and action plan, and they kind of boil these concerns down to a couple sentences. And I think it's a powerful statement. So they say, finding and retaining local talent is one of the greatest challenges facing the business community. Many school leavers who find employment out of high school lack basic literacy and numeracy skills, and therefore find it difficult to advance in the workplace or even to retain their jobs. Now, when the business community has said these things, some of the reaction in the community has been that businesses are acting in their own self-interest. They just want to make it easier for themselves to obtain work permits, etc. But as you know, it's not just the business community. So I'll just refer to statements made on the campaign trail by just one candidate, Michael Miles, who, of course, as people know, is a longtime social worker and even worked for the Ministry of Education for multiple years. He referred repeatedly to his opinion that too many students graduate from high school and are given diplomas that have little or no value. And he actually proposed eliminating the most basic level of diploma and replacing it with vocational training. So instead of just sticking with what the business community says about high school graduates, I decided to take a look at what the government itself says about these high school diplomas it's rewarding and what value the government places on it. So what I did is I went to...
Real quick, Patrick, I just want people to be clear because I realized I didn't mention this myself, that we do have both private schools and government schools. And so the diplomas in this instance are from essentially the largest school system on the island, which is the government or public school system.
Correct. And as is, you'll notice a trend if you follow education in Cayman is the only data we have is on the public high schools. There's no graduation data for the private high schools. So we're not just picking on the public high schools. That's what we have to talk about.
So let's dig a little bit into what we're seeing about what the government itself is saying about those high school diplomas.
Well, I think we can start with what I think is a very almost shocking fact, and that's 41% of last year's public high school graduates actually received a middle school diploma. So they graduated from high school and they received a diploma that the government considers equivalent to junior high level qualifications. So that would be grades 7, 8, or 9. And what they received is something called a level 1 diploma, and that can be obtained by scoring 5 Fs on external exams. So score 5 Fs, get your level 1 diploma.
So, I mean, for the intents and purposes of getting a job out there, look, I'm going to say regardless, and you can disagree with me if you want, regardless of what you walk out of high school with, I believe being in high school is important, and I think completing high school is important. I mean, I believe even being on the peripherals of education is important for us in terms of development and character. I think learning a little is better than learning none. And, for me, that's important. But at the same time, if I'm telling my student that they have graduated and they are not ready to go into the workforce, now I would expect, just because of my family background, I'm thinking you get out of high school, you're gonna keep pursuing education until you're at a point where you're ready for life in the workforce. But that's specific to how I was raised. My parents were educators. So it may be a little bit different in some families. They may expect their children to finish school at 16, well, 17 really now, because you have to be in some sort of academic or vocational pursuit until you're 17. They may be expecting them to get out and be ready to go. The concern here is this may create a false sense of what's realistic, finishing with that diploma.
Correct. I mean, I guess for me, it's I think it's important that people know exactly what value or how they're what they need to know what they're getting. So when you're getting a level 1 diploma, you're getting a middle school diploma. You're not getting a high school diploma, even though you've spent the last 2 or 3 years in upper level secondary school. You've actually only been given the government's approval that you are at a junior high level of certification. And I don't think
Now,
that's something that's talked about a lot.
well, let's also, the terminologies that we're using, junior high is generally considered an American terminology, right? It's,
Sure.
what is it, 7, 8, 9th grade?
Yes. Yes. So the document I'm basing this off on is it's called the Cayman Islands National Qualifications Framework. And we can give a little mini history lesson. So in 2011, then Education Minister Rolston Anglin announced that for the first time, there were going to be academic requirements for high school graduation. So prior to 2011, it was solely based on attendance and behavior. And so what Minister Anglin said, and I can quote, he said, "It's not good enough to merely turn up and behave moderately well to gain a high school diploma. Modern society requires a minimum skill level, even at the most basic entry level of employment, and hence our criteria must reflect such requirements." So these graduation requirements were implemented in 2014, along with the National Qualifications Framework. And so if you look at the framework, what it says is level 1 diploma equivalent to middle school / junior high / years 7, 8, 9. So it's very specific.
So I take my diploma and I go get a job, and the employer thinks, well, this person is hireable, but I may not have the skills I need in order. I mean, it's a bit young anyway in the workforce. I'll be honest. The me at 16, the me at 24, two very different people. And even at 24, it's questionable that I was mature enough to be doing some of the work that I was doing, let alone raising the child I was allegedly raising. So I have to say that for me, there's a maturity issue on top of it. But in terms of the expectations, I don't want to say that middle school diploma is bad to have. I just believe that we need to be realistic about what it is and what else is going to need to be done in order for our students and in our future to be equipped to handle the jobs that are out there, because they are not just competing with each other. They are competing with people from around the world. And I know this is a very challenging issue. Went to a restaurant, Patrick, and there was a huge discussion amongst the both Caymanian expat mix at the table about the lack of Caymanian servers, and that we can discuss that rabbit hole forever. But what I found interesting was that I wouldn't really expect a middle schooler to be able to rattle off all of the French names of those recipes and understand all the dynamics of where all that comes from. I wouldn't expect that. That wouldn't be reasonable for me. So I'm going to send out my person with a middle school education to compete with someone who's world traveled, speaks multiple languages, and by the way, who's actually not getting paid that great of a salary either in the scheme of things when it comes to cost of living. It just feels like there's a disconnect about all of these things together. And at the back end, we're going to have a very frustrated generation of young people who don't understand necessarily why they aren't able to be at a certain level. And I think it does start with us being honest about what things mean and how they'll be perceived by the people who are doing the hiring.
Yes, and I think it's important to, or one way to look at this is when you look at what Minister England said 10 years ago about the diploma needs to reflect a certain skill level, and that's why you put the requirements in. Well, has that objective been accomplished with the level 1 diploma? And
And
it's,
that's, well, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, and I was going to just say, and even, if you're looking back and you say, well, did this achieve what it was supposed to achieve? But then looking forward, you can say, and all these, and then in all the kinds of high school diplomas, like what opportunities are available to you to further your education after this basic diploma. So that's kind of the second part of this calculus that I used to gauge the value of the diploma. And that was looking at government's criteria for scholarships for further education.
So
And what I found is,
just quickly, that the Cayman Island Scholarship Program is amazing, right? I don't know very many places in the world where so many scholarships, and I don't have a number, so many scholarships get issued for such large amounts annually for students to study. I'm just going to say that is incredible. But the standards do tell you how we perceive the diplomas. Okay.
correct. And it's the same ministry. So you got the Ministry of Education, which has the graduation requirements, and then you have the Ministry of Education / Education Council, which turns around and tells the graduates what they now qualify for. And so what I found is, if you, for the minimum level of qualifications for a level 1 diploma, you don't qualify for any government scholarships for anything. And that includes even the most basic, what they call a certificate or a pre-college program from UCCI. So the certificate program requires at least one level 2 pass. So you have to at least get a C. So if you get 5 Ds, you will not qualify for financial aid to do the 1-year certificate program. And you won't qualify. And I think you need 2 level 2 passes to do the pre-college program. And you won't qualify for A levels or associate's degrees. And then if you look, so we talked a lot about the level 1 diploma. There's also the level 2 diploma. And the level 2 diploma is the basic standard high school diploma. So this is the high school diploma as recognized by the qualifications framework. And so the level 2 diploma has 3 flavors. You've got the standard level 2, which means you get 5 C grades or better. You have level 2 with honors, which means you get 7 C grades or better. And then you have level 2 with high honors, and this is the cream of the crop. So you need 9 passes, and they have to be A's or B's. And if you look at, so 46% of graduates received a level 2 diploma or a level 2 with honors diploma. And if you look at the government scholarships, those minimum requirements for even the honors diploma is less than the requirements for a government scholarship to study at an overseas university or to study at the local law school. So even if you're an honors student, you may not qualify for these 4-year university programs overseas or for the law school. So the only students who do qualify for all of the government, or whose diploma qualifies them for all of the government scholarship programs, are the 12% of students who have the high honors.
So I'm trying to see this from multiple perspectives where I can, and I suppose you could make the argument that an overseas scholarship, for example, isn't necessarily what everyone is going to do, right? rates, or should be able to do if they're not going to be able to perform at that level. So I appreciate having standards that we have to achieve. Where I've had the struggle is, and this is perhaps again because I have not just the educators in the family, but I've had 4 kids, and they're all different. Some of them have been excessively bright, but not really motivated by academics, which was a shock to me. I'm like, wait, what? Is that possible? I have, children with some learning disabilities or learning challenges here and there, and yes, I've added them. I have one child of all of them who works exceptionally hard he treats his schoolwork like it's a job that he's getting paid for, and is disciplined, again, a shock in my family. And so what I'm saying is there are different young people with different challenges, different family backgrounds, and yet the course of their life can be determined by what happens at this early stage of their life. And so, as you grow and mature, I think, oh my gosh, the difference between 2 years of maturity, the ability to recognize that, I should have done better 2 years ago, but now I'm ready to do that. It just concerns me that there will be they'll give up and they won't go any further in life because they were too low on the totem pole to begin with. And I'm not really blaming anybody for that. I'm just saying the system itself raises some concerns for me because I feel like those are the young people who will fall through the cracks one way or another. Whether that ends up with them being unemployed or unmotivated or, underemployed is the phrase I was looking for, where but you actually could do a lot more. You just hadn't found your path yet. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of room for that. I know we have SciFec, for example. There doesn't seem to be a lot of room to rise above all this after the fact.
Yeah, and I think it's what's interesting to me is you have this group of students who have level 2 diplomas, or actually the kids with level 2 honors. It's 36% of students have this honors diploma, so more than a third, and so they graduate from high school as an honors student. But if you look at the scholarship criteria, what the government is basically saying is you're not prepared for the overseas university experience. First, you either have to study, they'll give you a scholarship to study at UCCI or ICCI for an associate's degree, or they'll provide funding for you to go take your A levels, which is offered at the private schools. So, you don't want, I guess one of my goals in talking about this is so when parents say, my kid's an honors student, why can't they get a government scholarship to go study in Florida? And you say, well, this is actually what these criteria are. And I guess one caveat I wanted to put on this is because the level, what the standards aren't exactly the same for the scholarships compared to the degree requirements. So I guess the point is that some honor students would qualify for the law school or the overseas scholarships because the scholarship requirement is 7 passes at A or B level, whereas the honors diploma is 7 passes at A, B, or C. So you could have a segment of students who got 7 A's and B's, didn't quite get high honors, they didn't take enough tests, or maybe they got a C on the 8th test, but they would qualify for this scholarship. So it's really talking about how the minimum standard for the honors diploma is lower than the minimum standard for the scholarship.
So you've got this gap here, and I see the problem. It's very clear on that front. If we are checking out Cayman Current, one of the things I do like is generally your link to resources and stuff so that I can read the things for myself as well. In this case, if I'm a parent and I really want to get a deeper understanding of this issue, along with the article that you put together, is there additional information for folks, like the framework itself, that kind of thing?
Yes, and it'll all be linked in the article. And we do have a table that breaks out all the requirements for the diplomas and for the scholarships. We also have, I have a color-coded chart that just says, does your diploma qualify you for this scholarship, yes or no?
Excellent.
And we also have a something I'm proud of because it took a while to build, but we have a Cayman Islands scholarship directory, which has
Yes.
information and contact information about as many scholarships, private sector and public sector, that I can find, with deadlines and email contacts and links to websites. So, there's actually, I think every month is a different deadline for a scholarship. So if you're a student or a parent interested in funding opportunities, it's something worth checking in on, to say, okay, when applications are due in July for this, we better start getting it ready now, because you don't want to leave money on the table.
Patrick, I just went through this, and I have to say it was chaotic a bit, and just having here's what's happening when, here's what's due when, here are the criteria. Having someone curate that information for me is hugely helpful, because while some of them have very similar requirements in terms of documentation and what you need, you don't want to wait till August to find out you need a specific recommendation letter from a teacher who's now off island for 2 months, that kind of thing. So, the directory is really, it's an amazing resource. It's like, thank you very much. All right.
No, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, because when I grew up in my hometown, you talk about local scholarship opportunities, and there were two. And it was you could get a scholarship from the grocery store chain to go study grocery store management.
Was it HEB?
HEB, or okay. You could get a chemical engineering scholarship from DuPont, which they've changed ownership. So you could go work at the factory and make plastic pellets. So the fact, I think we have maybe 60 to 80 scholarship opportunities that I've just been able to find. I mean, it's really amazing, the kind of resources that the Cayman Islands community has for this.
And the fact that that exists means we also need to continue to pay attention to ensuring that our students are able to qualify for those by focusing on, academic achievement earlier on in life. Sometimes it is hard to justify it, but I'm like, it's actually money. Some people said to me, no, college diploma, not necessarily money. I'm living proof that I might have gotten through without the diploma, but it's highly unlikely, because it got me in the door, and I met enough of a checklist because I had both the diploma and then the college degree as a result. And I tended to earn 20 to 30% more than other folks did, because I had actually gotten to a certain level in terms of my academic achievement. So I just have to say, I hear you, and I hear the internet telling you just need to read 5 books, but I still fully disagree. I do. This I have a firm opinion on. All right, so it's we're about out of time. Patrick, anything else we need to tell people before we wrap things up?
Yes, just a little bit, and it's interesting. It's a different story, and we talked a lot about school inspection reports the past couple weeks, and we actually got and to me, it's an interesting press statement from the opposition. I guess we're far enough away from the election they've organized. And so Barbara Connolly, who was the former counselor for education under the last administration, she's now the shadow minister for education for the progressives. And so she sent out a good statement congratulating schools on their inspection results. But then embedded in it, she challenged Premier Wayne Panton to mirror the progressives' commitment that all public schools should be rated good by the end of their administration. So I think that's something to watch out for, as this is going to be the strongest, most organized opposition in Cayman Islands history, I would assume, or at least in
call the other guys and tell them you said that.
Yeah, the past 20 years. So it'll be interesting, I think, in all manner of subjects to see kind of the level of sophistication and coordination that this single party opposition is going to be pressuring the current government on.
Yeah, and I have to say, isn't that what the role of the opposition should be anyway? It's to really keep you on your toes. I mean, nobody likes it when someone is criticizing your movements, but sometimes that is what's necessary to make sure that you're not just drinking your own Kool-Aid some days, because it can happen once you're the one in the position of authority. So I agree with you. I'm really interested to see how, how that all works out. So thanks, everybody. That's all the time we have. Patrick Brendel from CaymanCurrent.org. I always get
Thank
that
you.
spatially challenged. April Cummings from Cayman Life TV. And of course, if you have anything you want us to talk about on the education front, you can email me at april@caymanlife.ky. Or Patrick, tell me your email again.
First initial, last name, pbrendel@caymancurrent.org.
And there you have it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one.
Thank you.